Here is my official Patreon. Please join it because there are many stuffs that I can't share here because of community guidelines. But on my Patreon page, you will get adult Harry stories, Naruto, and Deca 2. Also the quick access for other parts of my story which might take time on YouTube. Also there are many stuffs you will get here. Please consider joining my Patreon. Link in the description.
Hey, in this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto x Ahsoka? This is part 1 and I request to check out respective author of this fanfic named An Old Age Jedi by Mr. Blackberry. Let's get in the video. Minus 3653 BBY, above Coruscant. Naruto was having the roughest time in the skies above the Republic's capital against Sith starfighters. Currently there were hundreds of Sith dreadnoughts orbiting the planet and hundreds of starfighters infesting the skies. Naruto along with many of the Jedi and Republic pilots took to the skies to defend their home from the Sith, but the battle wasn't going well. Someone had turned off the planet's defenses and had killed the Chancellor. Right now Naruto was trying to get clear of the giant clusterfuck of ships to jump to safety and into hiding, as he had gotten a transmission that the temple had fallen and that all surviving Jedi were to escape into hiding until further notice. Though he was dodging cannon fire from 5 Sith S-12 black bolts and his modified BT-7 wasn't made for speed, though it had excellent shielding, but right now his shields had failed and he was about to do something really risky as the black bolts were gaining too much ground. Naruto circled around a Sith dreadnought and finally was clear to jump to hyperspace, but he knew the Sith would be right behind him, so he punched in the coordinates to the nearest black hole and jumped, and like he predicted, the 5 Sith starfighters jumped right after he did. It would take about 30 minutes, so Naruto activated the 3 repair droids he had on board and tasked them to try to get the shields back online while he prepared what would likely be his last transmission. He punched in the emergency frequency that the Republic and the Jedi used. For any Jedi left out there that can hear me, this is Jedi Knight Naruto Uzumaki. I am attempting to lose my pursuers near a black hole. My ship is damaged and I fear that I will not make it. If my Padawan is still alive, please tell her I am sorry I couldn't see her complete her training, that I am proud of what she has become. Good luck and may the Force be with us all. With that, Naruto shut off the transmitter and started to help the droids repair the shield generator. 30 minutes later the shields were back up, but not at 100%, and the battered BT-7 exited hyperspace in front of the black hole. Naruto stared at it for a few seconds until the proximity alarm sounded, signaling that his pursuers had arrived. Naruto whipped his ship around to face his enemies and accelerated towards them with his cannons all firing, catching 3 of the Sith fighters off guard and blasting them into oblivion. The other 2 were lucky and found themselves out of range. They returned fire, scoring a few hits and passed Naruto. They all turned their ships to face each other and fired again. Naruto scored direct hits on both fighters, causing the ships to burst into flames, but Naruto's ship wasn't unscathed either, as the Navi computer had been hit and it had activated the hyperdrive. He tried to deactivate the hyperdrive, but Naruto couldn't stop it from sending him through the black hole at light speed. The last thing Naruto remembered before blacking out was a massive disturbance in the Force. 22 BBY unknown planet's surface. Naruto was awoken by suddenly being thrown out of his chair and onto the floor as his ship crashed on the surface of a planet. Eventually his ship came to a stop and Naruto got up from being tossed around, and to his dismay he saw that his ship, his trusty ship that got him out of so many tough scrapes, was beyond repair. Naruto collected himself for a moment to take stock of his situation. He had traveled through a black hole while in hyperspace, crashed on a planet that didn't look familiar. Naruto hissed in pain as he found out the hard way that his right arm was broken, and he was pretty sure a few of his ribs were as well. Kurama, how bad is it? You stupid brat, you took too much of a risk, and now look at yourself. Stuck on a planet we know nothing about and injured. Kurama took a deep breath. But at the very least we're alive and for the most part out of danger from being attacked by the Sith, and you are very lucky that you have both me and your healing factor. Now, your ribs should be healed by tonight as they are only fractured and not completely broken, but your arm will take 2 or 3 days for me to completely heal as you have 3 clean breaks. 2 on your wrist and 1 on your upper arm. Do try to stay out of trouble while I try to patch you up." With his piece said, the old fox cut the link. Naruto sighed and started to scavenge what he could. He retrieved the 1 pair of silver Jedi robes that had survived the crash. He was quite happy they survived, as he had modified them to have a thin layer of Beskar mesh underneath that he had taken from some fallen Mandalorian warriors that had attacked him and his Padawan. The next few things he found were his spare lightsaber, some emergency supplies, his portable distress beacon, and his old staff from his home planet. After finding nothing else intact, he left his ship through a large hole in the living quarters and made his way to one of the large trees off in the distance. It took him a few hours to hobble to the massive tree with a large hollow trunk. When he was done, Naruto sat down to meditate and connect with the Force, as it was too late in the day to set out to find anyone to help him, and he didn't know of the dangers that lurked in this planet, so he had to be extremely careful. A few hours later, Naruto stood up looking slightly disturbed, as the Force felt drastically different than it did a day or two ago, but that wasn't possible. Deciding to figure out what had happened the next morning, Naruto used the Force to pull one of the large seeds that had fallen from the large tree and used it to block the entrance to his refuge and curled up on a soft patch of ground. A few hours later, Naruto woke up to find that he could breathe without feeling any pain from his ribs. Naruto raised his left hand and used the Force to push away the large seed blocking the entrance to his hollow. Naruto grabbed one of the ration bars that he had and sat in the entrance. When he finished his meager breakfast, Naruto began to meditate and tried to feel his Padawan's presence in the Force. Though to his dismay he couldn't feel her at all, he then tried to feel for any of the Jedi that he knew of, but he couldn't feel them either. He then reached out to see if any Jedi had survived the purge, and to his luck he felt many scattered across the galaxy, and to his surprise he felt 3 heading to this planet at a rather high speed. Naruto looked up to see what looked like a fireball heading at full speed to the surface. Well, it looked like he wasn't the only one to crash land on this planet. Naruto watched the ship fall from the sky until it disappeared past the horizon. Naruto made up his mind to try to make his way to the crash. He sealed away his supplies, robe, data he salvaged from his ship, and his spare lightsaber into a seal on his left hand. Naruto donned his cloak and reached for his staff and slowly made the journey to where Naruto thought the ship had landed. It took most of the day to travel to the crash site, but when he arrived he found that a creature with a bird-like head attacking a figure in white and blue armor, and an injured human male Jedi on the ground struggling to get up to help fend off the creature. Naruto used the Force and lifted the creature off the ground and tossed it a good ways away. The creature looked at Naruto and hightailed it out of there. Naruto stepped into the clearing and made his presence known to the 2 people now looking up to him, and the white-armored one held a blaster pistol aimed at him. Naruto let his staff drop to the ground and held his good arm up as to surrender. "Identify yourself," demanded the armored soldier. "I would think my clothes would have made it obvious, but I am Jedi Knight Naruto Uzumaki. May I ask who you 2 are?" asked Naruto as he put his arm down. "My name is Captain Rex and this is General Skywalker. We sustained damage during a battle and our ship jumped into hyperspace and we crash-landed here," responded the armored figure. "Ha! What is the chance of you believing the same thing happened to me, and am I correct to believe that there are 2 other Jedi in the area?" "That wouldn't be too hard to believe, but how did you know about the other 2 Jedi, sir?" "I could sense them, though it looks like Skywalker could use a bit of help right now," Naruto said as he motioned to the struggling Jedi on the ground. Rex quickly helped his general back into the makeshift shelter and sat by the now relit fire and took his helmet off. Naruto likewise sat by the fire and lowered his hood. Rex observed the young man in front of him. He had short spiky blonde hair that seemed to spike out in every direction and had the bluest eyes the clone had ever seen. The man also had 3 whisker marks on each side of his face, and that seemed strange to him. "Captain, may I ask what kind of ship this is?" "I have been around many, but I haven't seen one like this." "Are you serious, sir?" asked the clone in disbelief. "Quite. This is a consular-class cruiser, sir. It is one that the Republic uses for transport and escorting other ships. It was used by the Jedi before the Clone Wars. The what? Sir, you haven't heard of the Clone Wars? How long have you been on this planet? Asked Rex. 2 days, I crashed here after a skirmish with some Sith warriors where my NAV computer was damaged and I jumped into hyperspace and went through a black hole. I don't really remember anything but arriving here and my poor BT-7 is completely ruined. Said Naruto. Sir. BT-7s haven't been used in almost 3,500 years, and the Sith Empire collapsed a millennium ago. Naruto was speechless. Had he jumped forwards in time when he went through the black hole? It was possible, but then it also meant that his Padawan and everyone that he knew was long gone. I suppose when I jumped into hyperspace while entering a black hole, I somehow went forward in time. But I am still not sure. Do you mind telling me what is going on in the galaxy at the moment? Asked Naruto, looking very lost. Okay, sir, here is how the Clone Wars started. And the conversation went on for hours with Naruto asking questions and Rex answering the best he could. Eventually they talked until the planet's sun came up, and during that time Anakin had stirred a couple times but fell back into unconsciousness soon after he woke up. So you are telling me that the Republic is fighting a droid army with clones of a bounty hunter? Asked Naruto, slightly bemused. Yes. And the clones are being led by Jedi? Yes. Wow. I guess I traded one war for another. Ah, it seems like one of your friends are back. Said Naruto, slowly getting up to see another clone, a young Togruta and a rolling furball he assumed to be a Lurman, slow down and stop at the edge of the clearing when they saw him. The clone raised his blaster and the young Togruta ignited her lightsaber. Naruto didn't really blame them, as seeing an unfamiliar figure in a black cloak by your injured friend is slightly worrisome, though Naruto, not really wanting to start a fight right now, just held out his hand and pulled their weapons out of their hands. He directed the blaster over by Rex and caught the Padawan's lightsaber and switched it off. Hey! Give that back! Whined/demanded the young Togruta, ready to pounce on the stranger to reclaim her lightsaber. Now, youngling, you have no need of this right now. Come, sit down and rest for a moment as your Lurman friend takes a look at Master Skywalker. You too, Commander, you come sit down as well. Said Naruto as he sat down and observed the youngling's lightsaber. He looked back up at them after a minute and saw that only the Lurman had moved. Well, sit down, I'm not going to bite. Well, not unless you want me to. Naruto said jokingly. The youngling looked a little appalled, and Naruto could guess that the clone was shocked, but the helmet hid his expressions. Commander Bly, Commander Tano, this is Jedi Knight Uzumaki. He drove away one of those bird things that attacked us last night. Said Rex, waving them over to the campfire. They slowly sat down on the opposite side of the campfire and stared at the extra that had found them. You seem to have something on your mind, youngling. Said Naruto. Where did you come from, what happened to you, and could you not call me a youngling? You don't look that much older than me. Ahsoka spat out, still unhappy at being disarmed. Well, I came from a world that has been long since destroyed, but you must mean where did I come from before I arrived on this planet? Well, I came from the temple, and as for why I am like this, I crash-landed on this planet same as you. Now for why I call you a youngling is, how old are you? 15. Yeah, that is mostly why, you still look like one, and as to why I look so young is because of what I am. I may look young, but I am around 500 years old, give or take a few years. Ashoka and the two clones looked gobsmacked and Naruto smirked at their reaction. Why, you, what are you? I have never met a human that ages so slowly. Asked a very bewildered Ashoka. A very rude question, but I guess I can say that I am not human. I am something else entirely, and I am the last of my kind as my people were slaughtered in the war, said Naruto as he noticed the Lurman coming over to them. So how is he? Your friend is stable for now, but we need to get him back to the village, and it looks like you need to be looked at too. Said Wag 2. Naruto shook his head. I'll be fine in a day or two, we should really get going if Pretty Boy needs help. said Naruto as he stood up and tossed Ashoka back her lightsaber, which she barely caught, and slammed the butt of his staff on the ground, and to everyone's amazement a wooden litter grew out of the ground under Anakin. Naruto then used the force to lift and move the litter to where it was floating beside him 3 feet off the ground. "So shall we get moving?" Naruto said with a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Oh, he was so enjoying screwing with people that obviously have never seen his people's abilities, though in all reality it was very possible that many force abilities were lost during the purge, but even then he was an oddity due to his chakra. The others simply nodded and followed him. It took a few hours to get back to the Lerman village to see many curious villagers and a very curious Twi'lek Jedi waiting for them at the entrance. Ayla looked on curiously as she saw her group return with an extra, a young man she had never seen before that was dressed in an odd style of Jedi robes that looked outdated. "Commander, who is our new friend?" asked Ayla. "Well, General, he is a Jedi that also crash-landed on this planet." Naruto put the litter down and stepped towards Ayla and bowed. "My name is Jedi Knight Naruto Uzumaki, Guardian of Knowledge and former Sentinel. It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance," said Naruto with a smirk. "I am Ayla Sakura. May I ask what you mean by Guardian and what you have done to have the Padawan glare at you?" "Ah, that, well, I disarmed her, and I think she is a little unhappy on how easily I did it," answered Naruto, now staring down at Ashoka, who looked away and gave a slight humph. "As for what I mean by Guardian, that is something between me and the Council. I do have a question though, which one of you is her master?" asked Naruto with a slight frown. "That would be Master Skywalker," said Ayla. With that, Naruto walked back over to the litter that now had an awake and very confused Anakin surrounded by Lerman villagers. "So I have a question for you, pretty boy. Why do you let your Padawan dress like a whore?" It was so quiet you could have heard a pin drop. The clones, Lerman, and Anakin looked dumbstruck. Ayla had a hand covering her mouth with a slight blue blush on her cheeks, and Ashoka looked like she was about to die from embarrassment. Hell, my Padawan wanted to dress similar to her, and when I asked why, she argued that full robes would hinder her flexibility. I proved her wrong, but I made a compromise with her. Instead of wearing the full upper portion of the robes, she could wear a tank top with disconnected sleeves. Oh, she made a big fuss about it, but in the end accepted it. Naruto looked around and saw all eyes were on him and that everyone had their jaw hanging open. Ah yes. I forgot many people are not used to seeing or hearing a Jedi being so crass. Well, if you all have any questions, I will be over on the hill to the south of the village," Naruto said and started walking away from the group. Snips, you mind filling me in?" was the last thing Naruto heard before he was out of sight. Naruto then vanished in a swirl of leaves and reappeared on the hill overlooking the village. Naruto sat down and reached for his saber and stared at it. It was a long-hilted single-bladed lightsaber that held 2 gold crystals. It was considered a mechanical marvel at the time, as he could split his hilt at the middle and be wielding 2 separate short sabers, but now he was not so sure it was exclusive to him. His staff could also split in half but was connected by some near unbreakable wire. He could pull off some rather unorthodox moves with it. He remembered how he thoroughly bested his Padawan with only his staff, and the result was that she had been tangled up in the wires while hanging upside down. Naruto sighed and thought about when he first met his Padawan. She was a young Arcanian that was so adorable, but she was arrogant as hell and thought she knew everything, as all Arcanians did, but he nipped that quickly in the bud as he pretty much beat it out of her with training and embarrassed her relentlessly. Oh, how she hated him for the first few months, but as the years went on and after many missions together, they grew closer, similar to a father and daughter pair. Of course, there were some times where that bond was double-edged sword, as he had almost lost it when he thought she was killed by Mandalorians. He in a fit of rage had slaughtered the group without remorse. Though when he was finished with them he found that she was still alive barely, he had rushed her back to his ship and placed her into a Bacta tank. Of course, he went back and stripped the Mandalorians of their armor and weapons, as he didn't want to leave them for anyone else to take and use against the Jedi. When he had returned to the temple, he was given time to rest and heal, as he had been injured as well. He was also shaken that he had lost control, but what had bothered him the most was that he had almost lost his Padawan. Naruto was brought back from memory lane when he noticed that the young Padawan had sat down beside him. "Shouldn't you be with your master, youngling?" asked Naruto, slightly making Ashoka jump slightly as she thought he was still meditating. "Or do you have questions for me? How did you make the litter to carry my master, and why did you look guilty when you mentioned your Padawan? What happened to you?" "You're going to have to elaborate on the last question, little one. Many things happened, but as to what I did, it is a skill that my kind have that is like the Force, but we can control the elements and a few other things. As to my Padawan, something happened that I haven't forgiven myself for, even though she has." "How did you end up here with a broken arm?" It's a mixture of bad luck, a busted Navi computer, jumping into hyperspace through a black hole, and crashing here on the surface of this planet. I am still unhappy that my favorite ship is totaled," said Naruto, pouting, though Ashoka looked at him in shock. "You went through a black hole?" "Yup, what kind of ship could survive that?" "Well, I don't know how, but my BT-7 managed, though it might be because I named the ship after my late wife, and I guess she's still looking after me." At the mention of him once being married, Ashoka gained a "what the fuck" look on her face. "But Master, Jedi are forbidden to be married. I guess after a few thousand years things are bound to change. I guess I should explain a few things, so they make more sense to you, as this is still a little confusing to me. Now I believe that when I went through the black hole at light speed that I went forward in time. The only reason is that only a few days ago I was fighting the Sith Empire above Coruscant, and that I was told to retreat because the temple had fallen, and now, I am hearing that the Sith Empire fell 1,000 years ago, and that the Jedi number in the thousands and are leading a war against battle droids with the help of clones that are trained for combat. In all fairness, it is still too much for me to accept that I have jumped almost 3,000 years into the future straight into another war." Naruto was cut off by a loud distant humming. He looked up to see a large ship enter his line of sight and start to descend. The ship, in Naruto's opinion, looked more like a large metal boot with wings. "By the look on your face I can guess they are not someone I can expect to be friendly. We need to get back to the village, come on Whiskers," said Ashoka, jumping up and sprinting away. Naruto sighed. He couldn't help but notice how Ashoka was very similar to his apprentice, as she too decided to give him the same nickname, though there were some differences. He shook his head and stood up, and slowly walked down to the village. He apparently had been temporarily forgotten, as his new friends were nowhere in sight, and the Lerman stared at him with wide eyes as they thought he had left. Naruto jumped up on the tallest seed building and concealed himself rather well. It took the ship a few minutes to land and offload its passengers. Naruto watched as the droids advanced and ransacked the village looking for something, and eventually the droids stood at attention in front of who Naruto guessed was the person in charge of them. Eventually the droids marched back on the ship and left. As soon as the ship was out of sight, Naruto slid down the pod and landed next to the Lerman chief. Well, that was interesting. What did they want? They were searching the village for weapons or contraband. Like they would find any weapons here. We are a peaceful people," said the old Lerman while hobbling into his home. "I don't know what your definition of peaceful is, but I would have to disagree with your claim to be peaceful. What would you claim us to be, Master Jedi?" "The word I would use would be harmless," said Naruto, causing the old Lerman to become agitated, but before he could speak Naruto spoke again. "From what I can see from your village, none of your people know how to fight or defend themselves. That makes you an easy target for others to bully and slaughter you. To be peaceful is to know how to cause great violence yet make the choice to say no more." With that, Naruto left the old Lerman to think upon what had been said. Naruto sat down by a fire pit and looked back to where he saw the ship vanish and decided to wait around in the village, as he had a feeling that his friends would soon return to the village to protect it. He turned out to be correct, as his friends did return a day and a half later with a ship and 2 shield generators. "So what did you all find out?" "The Separatists have a new toy," it destroys anything living but leaves machines unharmed. Sounds like a challenge. You said that they were coming. Which direction are they coming from? At the question, Ashoka pointed to the west and Naruto grinned, as it seemed like there were many hiding spots that direction, and Naruto started to form a plan. He then laid out the plan to the others. In short, the two clones, Ashoka and Ayla, would stay in the village to protect it. Anakin would hide close to where Naruto guessed the tanks would stop, and Naruto would hide somewhere in between so he could help whoever he needed to. The 4 Jedi and 2 clones went about setting up their defense and ambush. Now completely surrounding the village was a wall of the large seed pods, and to the villagers, Jedi, and clones' amazement, Naruto used his strange ability to fuse the pods together to create a rather rounded wall. Naruto decided that it was time to hide for the ambush. A half hour later, Naruto could see a large group of droids and 3 tanks approaching the village from his hiding spot. Naruto looked over at the few columns of battle droids and snickered. These droids didn't look half as dangerous as an HK unit, and they looked rather fragile. Though the tall dark droids looked a smidge more dangerous, but nothing Naruto would fret over. Though they may be as dangerous as a Jawa, their numbers may be a problem, as Naruto counted at least 80 in total, which was basically almost 2 platoons. Naruto watched as the shield generators were activated. This seemed to amuse the droid commander, as he ordered the tank to fire the defoliator cannon. The tank fired and the shell arced across the sky until it hit the shield head-on. What happened next reminded Naruto of a firestorm he saw once on a volcanic planet, as the round exploded and sent an ever-increasing ring of fire creeping along the shield. Eventually the fire went out and it appeared to do no damage to the shield. When the commander saw that the shield was still up, he frantically ordered 5 squads of droids to attack. Ashoka, Ayla, and the 2 clones stepped just outside the shield to repel the droids. When the 2 opposing sides clashed, Naruto helped his friends by using a force technique that shorted out electronics and effectively took out half of the attacking force. This action confused all that saw, as it seemed that 20 perfectly operating droids just simply died and collapsed on their own. Naruto almost laughed at the expression the droid commander made when the whole of the 5 squads were destroyed in roughly a little more than 2 minutes. The other 5 squads along with a tank were sent in, and Naruto decided it was time to put on a show. Naruto separated his dual-bladed lightsaber and ignited both blades and jumped into battle. He used his superior speed to appear in the center and only could be described as a golden blur as he decimated most of the droids and shredded the tank, though a few had gotten past him and destroyed the shield generators, but were quickly destroyed by the younger generation of the Lerman villagers. The rotund droid commander and his tanks were disabled by Skywalker. All in all, a very eventful day. The group restrained the commander plus the techs that came with him, and helped the Lerman clean up their mess. They were surprised that they received thanks from the Lerman chief for helping defend the village. A few minutes after, they all heard a loud whomph and looked up to see 3 Republic cruisers moving into atmosphere. Everyone looked relieved but Naruto, as he looked rather menacing as his eyes changed to a red vulpine shape and his whisker-like marks grew more pronounced. Ashoka was about to ask what was wrong, but Naruto raised his hand toward the middle cruiser and the cruiser started to nose down dramatically towards the surface. Naruto was immediately tackled by both of the clones and held down. "Sir, what the hell are you doing? That's a Republic ship!" shouted Rex. I am sorry. I mistook it for a ship of the Sith Empire. They are very similar in design. I am very curious where the Republic got those designs, though I will begrudgingly say that they were very effective," said Naruto as his eyes returned to their normal blue but still held the vulpine shape. "I guess I have to see the council now that we can leave. I wonder how they will take the news that their missing guardian has returned." 2 days later, Jedi High Council chambers. Needless to say, Naruto's return caused quite the stir around the temple, as all the Jedi had heard that the lost guardian of knowledge had been found after almost 3,500 years. Many of the elder Jedi thought that they were bringing back his remains, and the younger knights and Padawans were curious as they had never known that the Jedi were missing someone so important. Though now he was standing in the center of the chamber with only a few of the council members present as all the others were preoccupied with battles or other matters. His problem right now was that the council didn't believe he was who he said he was. And that really irked him. So, you do not believe me to be the person I say I am? Asked Naruto a little agitated. Say that, we did not. Only proof of identity, we do not have. Answered the little green being that Naruto assumed was the Grandmaster. So what would you consider proof? The dark-skinned human answered instead of the Grandmaster. The librarian had in his possession 2 holocrons, one a key, and the other a map. He also had a staff from the ravaged planet of Edo, his home planet. If you can produce these objects, we would be highly unable to dispute the fact of who you say you are. Naruto unsealed his staff and held it in his left hand, and Naruto then unsealed a black holocron and a white holocron and held them both in his right. Naruto then began to speak. In my hand are 2 holocrons, one a map to the hidden library of the Jedi. Basically a backup of all information that the Jedi collected over their many years that has been linked to the libraries of every temple that we have ever had, and I assume that it has updated itself over the 3,500 years I have been gone. The good thing is that during the sacking of the temple all information was copied and sent to the library for safekeeping, so in all reality I will be bringing back some of the history and information thought lost to the Jedi. The second holocron is simply the key. Any questions? Naruto said in a dry tone. The bearded Jedi Naruto assumed was who Anakin said was his master spoke up. I was wondering if you could explain how you were displaced from your time to ours, Master Uzumaki. Well, Master Kenobi, first I have not yet gained the rank of Master, so please don't call me one, and second I still don't really know the answer myself, but I will be looking into it, but I suspect that when I entered hyperspace and went through the black hole, that something happened to where I traveled forward in time until my hyperdrive deactivated. Do you mind explaining what you do as the Guardian? Asked an older female to Gruta. Well, basically I am the keeper and custodian of the Jedi's hidden archive, which I built as the result of the Grand Jedi Library being destroyed and in case of the temple being destroyed. I am its protector, and I was to train my replacement in case I was to fall as times were getting dangerous, but before my Padawan became a knight we were attacked and the temple fell. We were ordered into hiding. Said Naruto sadly. You were the head sentinel for almost 300 years and captured and/or eliminated countless Sith Lords, Acolytes, and Dark Jedi. What made you accept the position of Guardian? Asked Windu. Well, it was a very much needed change of pace, and if I would have kept going I would have broken. There is only so much one could take, and I had to face many friends that had fallen. Many of those friends I had to put down. One person I had to hunt down was my second wife. So you can probably guess why I stepped down from being a sentinel altogether. Said Naruto, creating a somber mood. Who was your Padawan, Knight Uzumaki? Asked an elder member of the council, trying to change the subject. Her name was Sira Agrarer. She was a young Arcanian that was a bit of a troublemaker. Curious it is, that a master you are not, but your achievements and trials, outclassed everyone in this room they have. Why a master you have not been made? Asked Yoda. Ah, that. Well, the previous councils and I never saw eye to eye on many problems, and I guess you could say I was not suitable to be made a master. That, and I didn't want it at the time, so I dodged the council summons many times. Well, escape from it, no longer you can. Call the council to a vote. I do, make Knight Uzumaki a Jedi Master, will we? All those in favor? The whole of the present council approved. As Grand Master of the Jedi Order, dubbed the Master, I do. Well, crap, I guess there was only so long I could run from in, though in my opinion almost 4,000 years was a good run. Said Naruto with a slight smile, gaining a few chuckles from some of the council. One last question for you I have, if comfortable you are, entertain the younglings would you? Asked Master Yoda with a smile. After I verify that the library is still intact and operational, would gladly entertain them. Though as you all know my ship is totaled and I am in need of a ride. Do any of you have any suggestions? Asked Naruto while sealing the holocrons back up. Well, Skywalker has a ship, and he has nothing better to do than to heal from his recent injuries. It sounds like a leisurely trip to the hidden library will be a good change of pace for him and his Padawan. So there is your ride, but how long should this take you to do? Asked Mace Windu. If everything goes according to plan? Maybe a few days to 2 weeks. Very well, may the Force be with you, Master Uzumaki. And with you, said Naruto as he bowed and retrieved his staff. He then left to go to the temple library as he had some time to kill. A few hours after the meeting, Naruto sat at one of the many terminals in the temple library pulling up whatever records pertaining to whatever he could find on his long-dead friends and Padawan. Many were slain during the fall of the temple, some were hunted down and killed by Sith assassins. Though a few of his friends survived to be a thorn in the side of the Sith Empire for a while. His Padawan was one of a few that escaped the purge, but after a successful suicide attempt in destroying a large Sith fleet, she vanished. There was no mention of if she was killed. She just vanished from history, and that annoyed the hell out of Naruto. Though his efforts were nil, he was impressed with the size of the library as it was almost the same size as it was in his time. And he could tell the chief librarian and her Padawan took great pride in the well-kept library. Is there something I can help you with, young man? Asked the sweet old lady. Well, if you can, could you help me find the record of an old friend of mine? It should be record 19-482-6605. That can't be right. That is an old Republic Jedi record. So it is. I wish to see her full record. May I ask why you would want to see the record of a Jedi that has long since died? Well, she happens to be my old Padawan. Replied Naruto, causing the old librarian's mind screech to a halt. It took a second, but she eventually replied. That can't be possible, you don't look a day over 20, much less a day over 3,500 years old. Naruto, instead of talking, just pulled up a hologram of his record and motioned for her to read it. The old woman's expressions went from disbelief to shock, to awe. Here before her was the keeper of knowledge long since thought lost. Naruto smiled at her and motioned her to take a seat next to him. So will you be willing to help me to find out what happened to my Padawan, and in exchange I will answer any question about the hidden library within reason? Asked Naruto. I suppose I will. A few hours later, after answering many questions and promising to bring back knowledge that was destroyed in the sacking of the temple, Naruto left the library, disappointed that there was no information on what happened to his Padawan. He absent-mindedly traversed the familiar yet different halls of the temple, getting curious stares and friendly waves. After wandering around the temple for around an hour, Naruto decided to make his way to the medical ward, which took him around 15 minutes to find. He stepped through the doorway and saw Obi-Wan speaking to both Skywalker and his Padawan. Deciding to have some fun, Naruto cloaked himself in the Force and snuck up behind Skywalker. He held up his finger to his lips and gave Obi-Wan a mischievous wink. He stood there until an opening in the conversation appeared. So I basically have been volunteered as a taxi service to take the guy that we found on the planet we crashed on and take him to wherever he needs to go. Great, oh, don't be a stick in the mud, pretty boy. If it was me getting that task, I would be overjoyed with not having to be stuck in a hospital until full recovery. That, and you will see something no one has set eyes on for a few thousand years, so perk up. Both Ashoka and Skywalker jumped and looked behind them at the unexpected person piping up behind them. When did you get here? Asked an annoyed Padawan. 30 seconds ago. Answered Naruto with a slight grin. And it is time for us to depart. I hope you have a warmer change of clothes, Padawan, because where we're going you're going to need something more than what little you have on, as we are headed to an ice planet. Now can we get a move on, please? Said Naruto. Yeah. The Twilight is in Hangar 5, meet us there in 30-ish minutes as I have to request supplies and make sure my ship will be able to function in frigid weather. Grumbled Anakin as he got Naruto's warning about cold weather. He will catch up to you too in a few minutes. Master Yoda and myself have something to discuss with him. If you would please follow me, Master Uzumaki. Fine, where to? Asked Naruto. Well, we are going to the training hall. It seems that it is time for some of the younglings to become Padawans and Master Yoda is always present when this occurs, and we would like to speak with you before you leave. Well, let's go. I'm curious to see if the Padawans are any better than the ones of my time, said Naruto. The two walked in silence toward the Padawans' training area, though they stopped when Naruto felt something small crash into him from behind. He turned around to see a young Dathomirian girl on the ground rubbing her head. She looked to be around 13 to 14 years old, and stood around 4.5 feet tall. When Naruto got a better look at her, he saw that she had short scarlet hair that framed her pale heart-shaped face. Naruto kneeled down in front of her and looked her in the eyes. HNN, what did I run into? Well, that would be me. What is the hurry, youngling? Asked Naruto with a slight smile. I'm late for training. I got too caught up in a debate with one of the historians and lost track of time. Sorry for running into you, master. Who are you? Naruto Uzumaki, and who might you be? Rem Niva, Master Uzumaki. Wait, are you the lost guardian that recently returned? Asked Rem. Yes, I see word travels fast around here, though you can come find me and we can talk about it later. Don't you have somewhere to be? Asked Naruto, smiling a bit more when she gained a "oh crap" look. She bowed and shot off down the hall and disappeared from sight. Naruto turned his head to see what Obi-Wan thought of the situation, but when he looked at him, Kenobi had a slight smile on his face and a mischievous twinkle in his eyes. Naruto shook his head and stepped forward only to step on something cylindrical. Naruto looked down to find a small lightsaber. After a second of looking at it, Naruto scooped it up and inspected it. It was a simple hilt covered with Dathomirian-styled carving starting at the bottom of the hilt and ending at the switch that was situated 2 inches above the center of the hilt. Naruto didn't even have to guess to know who the lightsaber belonged to. He sighed and slipped the small saber into his cloak and followed Obi-Wan to where the eldest of the younglings were being trained. Eventually he stepped into a training room full of young soon-to-be Padawans with a few knights and masters observing the training. Though he didn't really pay attention to anything other than his task of trying to find Rem, he eventually found her looking frantic and being lectured by who Naruto assumed was the master tasked with training the younglings. Naruto finally noticed that the training had stopped and that everyone was looking at him and Obi-Wan. Naruto could guess that it was because he looked strange in his outdated armored robes and that no one had seen him before now, and that he was in the company of a member of the council. Hello, I guess I'm interrupting something? Naruto asked the instructor. Yes, though if you are here to watch the younglings compete in the tournament, I would advise finding a spot with the rest of the knights and masters. If not, please state your business, said the instructor. Naruto took the small lightsaber from his cloak and levitated it above the palm of his hand for all to see. Well, I am here to return this to the youngling who lost it when she ran into me and to tell her to find a better clip as this one is broken. Naruto then pushed the lightsaber over to Rem, who caught it and calmed down a bit and muttered a quiet, "Thank you." Naruto then bowed and followed Obi-Wan to where Yoda was sitting and sat down to the left of the old Jedi. So, what is it that you wanted to talk to me about, Master? The younglings, what do you think of them? They seem excited and nervous, though a few exclude fear. Obi-Wan cut in as Master Yoda was slow in giving explanations and they were in a slight hurry. As you can see, there are more Padawans here than knights and masters that are willing to take apprentices. Why we asked you here today is for you to choose a Padawan. We know that due to the time warp. I guess you could call it that. Due to the time warp, you may feel that it's too soon to take another when you just recently learned that you lost your recent Padawan. We are willing to accept your answer to be no, but we would like to try anyways. what would become of the extra Padawan? Depending on what their skills are, they may be assigned to a support position, or they may be assigned to a master like Padawan Tano was. I guess times really have changed when Padawans are being assigned to masters instead of being chosen. I will take one, though I will wait until last to choose, as it wouldn't be fair for me to come out of nowhere and snatch a potential Padawan, though I am sure Master Kenobi has a guess of which one I want. I could take a very good guess, and that is what we were hoping for, as the other masters were very weary of choosing her, as the females of her race practice very dark and forbidden arts. That, and they are not very well received anywhere, and I am very sad to say that it is no different here. She was given to us by her mother while we were on a mission to apprehend a Jedi killer that was hiding out on Dathomir. She grew up here, but sadly she is kind of an outcast among the younger generation, as there was a recent incident between the Jedi and the witches of Dathomir. Due to this she has become a bit of a recluse outside of training and very shy. She really only had one friend in her group, but they were recently assigned a master. The tournament commenced, and Rem was put against a boy much larger than herself, but that ended up being an advantage for her as she was smaller and quicker than her opponent. She used a mixture of Form 3 and 4 to defend and used the Force to allow her to nimbly dodge her opponent's attacks and eventually disarmed him. With that bout finished, another was started and took much longer to finish. A few hours went by and eventually the Padawans were taken by Jedi to be their Padawans until there was only one left. Rem felt distraught as she had yet to be picked and she didn't know what would happen if she didn't get chosen. Sure, she was a bit clumsy and a little different, but that didn't mean she would be a bad Padawan. A few minutes of silence went by and she bowed her head and felt like she was going to cry, though before any tears formed, she felt two people stop in front of her and she looked up to see the Grand Master and Master Kenobi. "Ah, Masters, what is to become of me? I didn't get chosen." "Ah, so sure of that, are you? What if one of us, your master, was?" said Yoda with a slight twinkle in his eyes. "Are you?" she asked with hope. "I'm afraid not." At those words her hope was diminished. "Though you do have a master." "Really, who? Care to take a guess, short stuff?" Rem jumped slightly and squeaked as she didn't sense or hear the person behind her until they spoke up. She spun around to see the towering form of Naruto Uzumaki grinning down at her. "Master Uzumaki?" "Yup. Maybe I should call you Squeaky, eh? So how are you feeling?" Rem was put off by how different Naruto was being. Compared to other Jedi who were strict and standoffish, he seemed energetic and mischievous. "I guess it is going great now, Master." "So what happens now?" "Well, now we get you ready for our first adventure as Master and Apprentice." "Now how do you feel about extremely cold weather?" asked Naruto as he ushered Rem out of the training area and towards where the Jedi Quartermaster was. "You do realize that we may have another pair of mavericks on our hands, right, Master?" asked Obi-Wan. "A bad thing, is this?" asked Yoda. "Well, I can't deny the results that Anakin and Ashoka produce from their unorthodox methods, but that normally leads them to get into more than enough trouble. True that is, but faith in them I have, that they will be a great influence on each other." "So you saw it too?" "It seems that the recent events have caused Master Uzumaki great sorrow and he has not made an effort to move on. Though he hides it very well. Hopefully you are right and they will help each other." Entrance Hangar 5 a few minutes later. "So what were you debating with the historians about that made you late, Squeaky?" asked Naruto, looking around for Skywalker or his ship. "Well, I disagreed with them on why the Jedi of old attacked the Sith world of Malachor. I believed that the Sith gathered there to amass an attack on the Republic and they believed that they were trying to protect something. Though we really couldn't put the matter to rest as the data is corrupted. Well, the history of the Sith is probably not something the Masters on the Council want a young Padawan to look into or even research." Rem looked disappointed at her master's words but perked up when he continued. "But I really don't care, as it pays to know about your enemy. So what happened on Malachar was that the Jedi planned to strike at a large group of Sith who were planning to set off a superweapon. So who won? No one. The weapon prematurely went off and destroyed both the Jedi and Sith forces on the planet. It has been forbidden for anyone to go there, and for good reason, as there are many dangers there that could kill any unsuspecting person who ventures there. Now let us table that conversation for now and find Skywalker and his Padawan. They are our ride to our destination. Master, what is our destination? Well, I can't tell you, as it is a carefully guarded secret. Even the High Council of my time didn't know where it was. Though I will be training you to be my successor if anything were to happen to me, so I will tell you in time, but not now. Where are they? I am pretty sure they said Hangar 5. Master, they are over there, said Rem while pointing over towards the edge of the hangar. Indeed, they were over there, and the two were in an argument. Again. Naruto, not wanting to delay any further, came up beside the two and put them to sleep with a force technique his master had taught him. Well used on him many times. Naruto then dragged them up the ramp of the twilight with Rem trailing behind him, looking aghast, and tossed them in a seat while powering up the ship and communicating with the hangar control. Master, why did you do that? Asked Rem while she buckled the two unconscious Jedi up so they didn't fall out of their seats. Well, from what I have heard, those two have long arguments that really don't end, and I really don't want to waste any more time, and as I said, this place is a carefully guarded secret, so I used a technique that my master taught me, and eventually I will teach you. Also sorry in advance. Naruto reached out and poked Rem in her forehead, causing her to fall back into a chair in a deep sleep. Naruto took hold of the controls and flew out of the hangar and into the atmosphere of the lively city world. It took a few minutes to input the coordinates, and when he was ready, Naruto pulled a lever and the ship jumped into hyperspace. Naruto then turned the navicomputer's monitor off and turned around to face Anakin and flicked him in the forehead. It took a second, but the young man began to wake up. Welcome back to the realm of the living, Skywalker. Have a nice nap. Where are we? Anakin groggily asked. Well, we are on your ship headed to the library, and before you ask what happened, I put both you and your Padawan into a deep sleep. How? Well, it is a technique that my master taught me that was slightly frowned upon by the High Council at the time, but they let it slide as it was very useful in capturing Rouge Jedi and Sith. I mean, my record shows how well it worked. Now for why I woke you before we got to our destination is to ask you two questions. 1. Where is a good place to buy a ship? Well, that depends if you have the money, and most Jedi do not, but if you do, there is a dealer on Coruscant that sells both new and used ships. I can take you there after we are done with your errand. What exactly are you looking for anyways? I don't know, to be honest, so many years have passed that any ships that I knew about have long since been junked. Though I will be looking for something a bit smaller than my BT-7, as that was a pain to take care of by myself. Wow, that is an old ship. Wait, how did you get a hold of one of those? They were top of the line back in the old days and rather large for what they were made for. Well, I saved the family of the owner of the manufacturing company that made the BT-7s from a group of Sith assassins. Needless to say, he was very grateful and asked me if he could do anything for me, and well, I said I needed a ship as my other one was too damaged to fly anymore, so he had one made specifically for me as thanks. And do you have enough to pay for a new ship? Son, I have enough to pay for several fleets of those giant cruisers that the Republic has. How the hell do you have that much? Asked Anakin in surprise. Well, when the Sith attacked my planet and wiped out my race, they only took what they could, and that wasn't much. I collected the rest of my planet's wealth after burying the dead. You would be surprised at how much precious rocks and minerals a planet has, along with many things the Sith couldn't steal even if they wanted to. Said Naruto sadly. Well, on to my second question, who are you bonded so close with? It can't be your Padawan, as you just recently got her, and it isn't your master, so who is it? What are you talking about? At this point Anakin was nervous. Well, all beings, whether force sensitive or not, create bonds with others, and very few consent said bonds though the force, so I ask again, who are you so close to? asked Naruto with a slight knowing grin. Can they hear us? Asked Anakin, motioning to the two Padawans. Nope, they will wake only if I want them to. I am married to a senator. Well, from what I have read about the current book of rules, you aren't allowed to be married. But, I don't care. Anakin blinked in surprise at this. I have been married twice and have had 5 kids that I know about. So from one formerly married man to one that is married, hold her close, as I lost my family when my world was invaded by the Sith and lost my second family to Mandalorian clan that had gone rouge, and I had to put my second wife down myself as she fell to the dark side when the Mandalorians slaughtered our children. I miss them very much. Though I warn you, you must be willing to let her go if she dies. I am not saying to forget her, but to understand that everything has a beginning and everything has an end. As my mentor told me once, something isn't beautiful because it lasts. That old bastard always had something to say about everything. I don't know if I can do that, but I will try. I hope you succeed where I failed, because if you end up falling, you will most likely be hunted down. Now, any questions for me? You mentioned before that you had a Padawan before your incident. Do you mind telling me about her? I guess. Her name was Sira Agrar. She was an Arcanian, had found her way to one of out many enclaves. During her early days of training, many of the masters at the enclave steered clear of her if they could, as she was a problem student in the beginning and no one wanted to take her as their Padawan. Can you guess how she became my student? I guess you somehow drew the short straw. Naruto began to roar with laughter at this. No, it's because she pissed me off when we first met. When we first met, though I was some homeless vagrant that somehow found a way into the enclave. To be fair, I did look the homeless part, as my robes were torn and filthy, my hair was a mess, and I hadn't shaved in a few years. She was also doing what she was assigned to do, but the way she did it was disrespectful and out of character for a youngling. Unluckily for her, I had just come back from settling a long civil war that was very bloody between rival factions on a very important planet to the Enclave, and I really wasn't in the mood for a youngling lecturing me and trying to order me to leave. When I revealed my lightsaber to her, she began ranting that Jedi were to look respectable. Of course, the Grand Master of the Enclave walked up to me and welcomed me back and congratulated me on a job well done. I asked him who the brat's master was, and when he said she didn't have one, I got the idea to become her master as her punishment, as I could already tell she was a stuck-up, by-the-book girl with an attitude that screamed, "I am the smartest person on the planet." Well, you can guess her reaction to her becoming my apprentice. She made her opinion well known and challenged me to a duel. Naturally, I accepted and even said I wouldn't use my lightsaber. That really pissed her off, as she saw it as me not seeing her as a threat. And well, she was right, as I really only used my staff, but again, I didn't need to against her, but I wanted to humiliate her. So in the end, our duel ended up with her hanging upside down in a tree, tangled up in the wires of my staff. In the end, she didn't learn her lesson the first time, and it took an additional few weeks of humiliation to start to make her learn that she isn't all high and mighty, though it took a few years to make her not so by the book and to pull the entire stick she had out of her ass. In the end, she was a humble person that also could be the smartest person in the room, but she didn't act like it, and she became a respectable Jedi. Though I couldn't quite get rid the slight arrogance she had, though I guess it is just ingrained into the Arcanians. The last time I saw her was when we escaped capture by a large Sith force a week before the temple was sacked. Hopefully she found peace wherever she ended up. Anything else? What was your home like? Well, before it was destroyed by the Sith, it was a thriving planet that had just began its long road to peace that followed a world war. During that time, the many countries were rebuilding and mourning. My village was called the Village Hidden in the Leaves, as it was surrounded by a vast forest. I was to be next in line to be my village's next leader, and my wife just had our second child. We were days away from a major ceremony with every leader in our world, and the Sith arrived and blasted our world to hell from orbit. Naruto stopped and gained a look of sorrow. Noticing how much of a turn the conversation had, Anakin decided to change the subject. Would you like to hear how my master and I got captured by pirates who were trying to, for lack of a better word, sell us a Sith Lord? Asked Skywalker. Sure, and from there on the two Jedi traded stories while the young Padawan slept. A few hours later the ship exited hyperspace in proximity of a desolate ice planet. So where are we? Asked Anakin. Well, we are in the unknown regions of the galaxy. This is a planet that I found during my travels after I was selected to find, recover, and guard knowledge of the Force both light and dark. The planet has no name and has very little life on the surface, but the living creatures that are there are very, very dangerous. Do not antagonize them. Also, when we enter the library, don't touch anything. I think I should have woken up the Padawans before I started to explain this. With that, Naruto turned the chair around to face the two Padawans and poked them both in the forehead. They both woke up and looked around and eventually saw the giant white planet in front of the ship and began to ask questions that were immediately stopped as Naruto held up his hand to silence them. We are about to land and I am about to go over some very important rules, and I will not tolerate any bending or breaking of the rules, as they are to keep you alive and in one piece. 1. There are creatures here that can and most likely will kill you without hesitation if they get a chance, so don't wander off when we are outside. 2. The library itself is very dangerous as there are many traps that will not kill you but they won't tickle either. There are also dark side artifacts inside that could kill you or destroy your mind and/or your body, so don't touch anything. Final rule. Well, more of a warning more than a rule. This planet is practically an unofficial Force nexus point, so you will probably feel the Force all around you and you will see visions of many possible events past and present. Try not to lose yourself in the visions, as many have already happened and some may or may not happen. If any of you break these rules, I will knock you back out and throw you back onto the ship. Now, any questions? So we can't even touch the books? Asked Ashoka with a cheeky grin. Naruto gave her a flat stare and they sat in silence for a few seconds. I amend my previous statement to this: you may only touch what the archive droids allow you to, which would be the Jedi knowledge and artifacts. All other artifacts pertaining to the Sith are locked away as they can be quite damaging to living beings. Now go change to your warmer clothes as we are about to land," said Naruto, ushering the three Jedi out of the cockpit. Naruto returned to the controls and guided the ship to where he remembered the library would be, only to find that something else was also there. Eventually the other three came back into the cockpit and also saw what had surprised Naruto. Resting above the secret entrance to the library, half buried in ice, was a Harrower-class dreadnought painted bright orange with a gold swirl painted on the front. "So this is what became of her," said Naruto, confusing all three of his companions. Unknown ice planet. Naruto still in a slight daze as he couldn't believe what he was seeing. His personal dreadnought that he captured from some random Sith Lord was in front of him. It looked mostly intact, though he could see many blast marks littering the hull, and the bridge looked like it was decimated. Naruto steered the twilight around the ship. In doing that he saw that the port side hangar bay happened to be unobstructed, and Naruto made the decision that the library could wait a little longer and set the twilight down in front of the sealed hangar bay. Naruto quickly stood up from his seat and walked out of the cockpit without a word, leaving three confused Jedi to scramble after him, only to see that the ramp was already down and Naruto was walking through deep snow to what looked like a small access hatch next to the hangar doors. The three tried their best to catch up with Naruto, but they were slowed down by the snow. Naruto, in a feat that none of the three Jedi thought possible, ripped the hatch open and slid in. The others looked at each other and followed the strangely quiet Jedi Master. They followed him through passageways and up/down ladders until Naruto stopped in front of a control panel and tried to power it up. Amazingly, the small console lit up and Naruto started to type in commands. 3 holograms popped up on the table behind the console, each showing different information. One showed the emergency reactor's power status as critical. One showed the integrity of the ship's hull was at 70%, weapons were non-functional, that only one engine was operational, and only the backup hyperdrive was operational. Small blessings, Naruto thought. He then looked at the third hologram to check crew logs. The logs stated that all surviving crew entered stasis pods. though almost all records stated that the occupants were deceased. Out of the 300 remaining crew members on the ship, only 4 still showed stable yet slowly decreasing vital signs. Though he couldn't see who still lived as the data was corrupted. Naruto turned to face his confused companions and stared straight at Anakin. The ship's emergency power is critical and the survivors in the stasis pods are in danger as they will die if the emergency power runs out. Do you think your Padawan, and your droid could activate one of the main reactors to restore power to the ship while my Padawan and I try to reboot the systems and try to reactivate whatever utility droids are still operational? Asked Naruto, turning back to the console. Sure, though I have no clue where they are. Said Anakin, hearing the urgency in Naruto's tone. With that said, Naruto activated a section of overhead lights that lead to the aft end of the dreadnought. Follow the lights, they will lead you to the reactors, hopefully they are operational. Said Naruto as the 2 Jedi and astromech disappeared down the passageway. Naruto then checked to see what droids were operational on the ship. He counted out of 200 T3 utility droids on the ship, only half were operational, and of those half, only 30 currently had sufficient power to function. Naruto sighed as he input commands into the console and activated the droids so they could start to repair critical systems. Naruto, with his Padawan following his instructions, started the reboot of all systems except the stasis pods. After an hour and a half the ship's main power was restored. Naruto sighed a breath of relief as the survivors' vital signs stopped degrading and began to rise back to normal healthy levels. Now Naruto had a new problem, as extended time in a stasis pod was not healthy and extremely dangerous, so Naruto wasn't about to thaw the survivors out. He looked at his Padawan and motioned her to follow him. While she walked by his side, Rem was worried as her master looked very troubled, and being tired of not knowing what was troubling him, she spoke up. "Master, what is going on? What is this strange ship, and why do you look so troubled?" "Well, this is my personal command ship from way back when, during my days fighting against the Sith Empire. She originally named the Sorrow until I captured her from a Sith Lord called Darth Valius and rechristened her the Hailstorm. As to why I am troubled, the last time I saw this ship was when my Padawan took command of her for a mission to locate a missing group of younglings a week before my incident. Hopefully I can find out what happened to her." As the conversation ended, Naruto stopped in front of the door that led to the stasis pod chamber. Naruto hesitated for a second and then opened the door. Inside were rows of hundreds of pods that filled the room, though many of the pods were empty. He then went to the nearest console and brought up the information that he needed on the survivors, though all he could get out of the corrupted data were pod numbers 09, 14, 110, and 144. Naruto jumped over to the closest pod, which was 144, which had a metal plate labeled PVT, a leaner mouse Rigot, female, 20 years old. Naruto then jumped over to the next, which was 110, which was labeled Capt. Marcus Ice Tapui, male, 34 years old. Naruto jumped over to the last 2 and saw that one of the pods had the name he was looking for. Pod 14 didn't have a metal plate on it, but Pod 9 did, and it simply stated Jedi Padawan Sira Agrar, female, age 17 years old. Naruto kneeled down in front of the pod and tears of joy started to come out of his eyes as he now knew his apprentice and adoptive daughter was not lost anymore. This was the scene that both Anakin and Ashoka walked into, and it was strange to them as they had never seen or heard of a Jedi Master displaying that much emotion before, so they just stood there watching Naruto weeping while smiling. Rem herself was at a loss of what to do as she had never dealt with this situation before, so she kneeled down beside her master and gave him a hug that he returned. Naruto stayed there for a while until he noticed that his 3 companions were around him, showing concern and confusion on their faces. Naruto wiped the tears out of his eyes, let go of Rem, and stood up. "I'm sorry about that. I'm sure that you all want an explanation. Well, I found out that my lost Padawan is alive, and that is all I am going to say for now. Let us head to our original destination and figure out what I need to bring back so we can quickly return, as the survivors will need to have a full medical team on station to extract them from the stasis pods." said Naruto as he began to lead them towards the same hatch that they entered the ship through. Though Skywalker had a thought that puzzled him and he voiced his question to Naruto. Master Uzumaki, why does this ship have stasis pods? I thought those fell out of use after the hyperdrive was created. Well, while it is true that they widely fell out of use due to the creation of the hyperdrive, it was still very dangerous and unpredictable to travel through hyperspace, and to be honest, the hyperspace lanes were not as well established as I bet they are now, so there were still many ships that were lost due to space anomalies. Many of those lost ships were eventually found floating adrift with all hands lost due to starvation, dehydration, or loss of power leading to the crew freezing to death. So I decided to have a contingency just in case that happened. Though there was one odd case of all the crew members going mad and killing themselves, that was a rather worrying sight that I still have trouble processing. Back to the topic at hand, living beings were not supposed to use the pod longer than a few centuries. It is a wonder that any survived longer than that. Naruto hopped out of the hatch and walked a couple of yards and suddenly sunk into the snow up to his chest. Hearing giggling behind him, Naruto shifted the snow behind him and flung a decent-sized pile of snow at the amused Padawans, who both yelped before being buried in snow. Both dug themselves out and glared at Naruto as he chuckled. Naruto dug himself out of the snow and started wandering around an area until he breathed a stream of fire at an angle at the icy ground. Eventually Naruto stepped into the tunnel of ice, taking a breath and breathing more fire and repeating this action until there was an opening at the end of the melted tunnel. Naruto stepped out of the tunnel, followed by the two annoyed Padawans and the amused knight. The three were in awe of the structure that was in front of them. It looked similar to the architecture of the Jedi temple on Coruscant, yet it was different as it looked much older and strangely in better shape. They watched as Naruto placed a holocron into a square-shaped slot in a wall, and a second later the wall slid back and vanished along with the holocron. Naruto motioned for them to follow him as he led them down many flights of stairs and past many sealed doors until he stopped before a podium. Behind the podium sat an ancient droid that powered on as soon as Naruto stepped in front of the podium. "Greetings, Jedi Uzumaki. It's nice of you to return after 3,631 years. I was beginning to think you forgot about us or had died." "No, I would never forget about you, D7. I had an incident that left me displaced." "I can't wait to hear that tale. I see that you brought companions. This is highly irregular." "I assume you have informed our guests of your rules about the library?" asked D7 as the droid looked at the other three Jedi. "Yes, I told them of the rules, and if they stray from what I have told them, please notify me. Now I was wondering if you could tell me if anything of importance has happened since I have been away." As the two discussed events, Ashoka elbowed Rem to get her attention. "That droid kind of looks like Professor Huyang, doesn't it?" whispered Ashoka, and Rem nodded as the old droid did look like the ancient lightsaber architect droid that she had met during her trip to Ilum. Both Padawans focused back on the conversation going on in front of them. "So, we have only had a few visitors. One of those clearly a Sith, a Mun if I'm not mistaken, but they didn't seem to know what they had found nor how to access the library." "When did the Sith find this place?" "Roughly 20 years ago, but that monstrosity that you call your ship landed here only 2 weeks ago." Now that news surprised Naruto, and he began to think on how that could be. He would have to look at the navigational orders in his ship's log. "That will have to be a mystery for another time. D7, could you retrieve this information and direct our guest to whatever they want to know in the specified section?" asked Naruto as he gave D7 a list of information and holocrons that he needed and disappeared around a corner. D7 focused his gaze on the Jedi in front of him and spoke, "Greetings, Jedi. I am D7. A reprogrammed architect droid and the custodian of the library which you currently occupy. What can I help you find today?" D7 directed his question to Ashoka first as she was the closest. I really don't have anything that I am looking for," answered Ashoka, smiling sheepishly. D7 gave the droid equivalent of a sigh. "Very well, what about the other Padawan? Could you guide me to the records of my master's former Padawan? You wish to know about your predecessors?" predecessors? I thought he only had one Padawan before me. Rem asked, confused, causing D7 to realize that he made a mistake. I am afraid I have said too much on a sensitive topic for your master. This mouse droid will guide you to the records of Padawan Argur. As D7 said that, a small turtle shell-shaped droid approached Rem and did a few quick circles around her and started to lead her to the records section, and Ashoka followed her. D7 looked at the last Jedi and stared at him. Quick note: the mouse droids look like small turtle shell-shaped droids. And how can I help you? Do you have advanced training holocrons for Form 5? Asked Anakin. Indeed we do, though they are by your definition outdated by about a few thousand years. The last time our archives were updated was about 500 years ago, before the link to the Jedi library on Coruscant was severed. That's fine, maybe there's some information that was lost during those years. Very well, please follow the mouse droid. With that, Anakin followed the droid and D7 powered back off. 3 floors below, Naruto opened a door to a dark room that lit up a few seconds after Naruto stepped into it. At first glance the room looked like a museum, which was kind of correct as it held mementos of Naruto's rather long life behind many glass cases. Some were from his home planet, such as the 7 legendary swords of Kiri, many different scrolls from every nation, the sage's tools, some war puppets from Suna, and the necklace that Tsunade had given him, as well as his godfather's book series. From his time as a Jedi, Naruto had collected many lightsabers and ancient weapons from the time of the Jedi on forward. Many of the lightsabers were taken from foes or kept from fallen friends, old gadgets that no longer worked, a few old droids, Mandalorian armor, the mask of Revan. But what he cared most about were his second wife's shattered Kyber crystal, his children's 3 small corroded lightsabers, his first wife's necklace, his son's favorite toy, and finally a case that held an old Jedi Temple Guardian uniform and a plain white mask. Naruto opened the case that held his old uniform and retrieved his old mask and stared into the eye slits. It's been many years since I've seen that mask. You're not thinking about donning it again, are you? Asked the old fox. Possibly, from what I have read in my short time back is that there aren't as many sentinels since the Sith were all but destroyed 1,000 years ago. They are mainly temple guardians and watchmen. I was a guardian at one point and probably know more about the older parts of the temple that are probably long forgotten, but it's disappointing that there are not even a handful of shadows left. Said Naruto while looking at another item that filled him with guilt and sorrow. In the corner behind a reinforced glass case was the double-bladed lightsaber of his first apprentice, who followed Revan in his crusade against the Mandalorians and fell to the dark side along with most who followed Revan. Naruto eventually had to hunt him down and eliminate him, as his apprentice had committed too many atrocities for Naruto to ignore. It was also the last time Naruto had worn his mask. It was also around that time that the High Council had asked him to build his library, as they could see he was about to break. Naruto had lost too many people he had cared about within a rough 100-year period, including his planet. His son and first wife were killed in the invasion of his home, his former master was killed in battle, he killed his second wife who fell to the dark side, and his 3 children were killed by Mandalorians. Naruto had lived in seclusion for many years after he was given the assignment of building a hidden library, and he spent many years alone, well, as alone as one could be, with a giant fox sealed inside him, collecting knowledge from everywhere until he met his second Padawan. Naruto was brought out of memory lane and to his knees as his mind began to be assaulted by many Force visions. One vision showed him leading clones in orange and white colored armor into battle, another showed Anakin and Obi-Wan fighting on a volcanic planet with Anakin being cut down, another showed both Skywalker and Kenobi sitting in a park on some unknown planet as old men, another showed a black armored figure fighting an older version of Rem and Ashoka in what looked like a Sith temple. Many more visions of possible futures and events long past. The thing that Naruto noticed was that all of the visions of the future that involved Anakin showed him falling to the dark side. Naruto didn't want to believe that his friend would fall, as Force visions were not set in stone, but he needed to prepare to either prevent his friend's fall or be ready to stop him. Naruto sealed his mask up and walked out of the room and walked to where D7 sent his Padawan. Personnel records. Rem was neck-deep in Old Republic records trying to find out more about her master and his previous Padawan. His record stated when he started out as an apprentice after he was found on his ravaged home world, he would always get into trouble even if he didn't go looking for it, and what information she could find about her master in his later years was the stuff of legends. He had married another Jedi and had 3 children with her, but records stated that the children were killed by Mandalorians and that Naruto had to kill his wife after she fell. After that her master pretty much leapt into battle after battle. To say that he was the bane of the Sith and their allies was an extreme understatement, as he was the boogeyman to them. His mere presence caused all but the most powerful Sith lords to tremble in fear. The amount of Sith and Mandalorians that her master had killed or captured boggled her mind. Though something changed after he killed a Sith whose name was redacted. The Jedi High Council had given Naruto a long-term assignment and he pretty much all but vanished from history around the time just before the Great Jedi Purge and reappeared around a few years before the Sith returned. There were mentions of many Sith being found dead with a spiral mark branded on their forehead, and many suspected that it was her master reminding his enemies and friends that he was still out there. He returned to the light around the start of the Great Galactic War by chance when the world he was collecting artifacts and old knowledge was invaded by Sith warriors and a Mandalorian clan allied with the Sith. Naruto had single-handedly massacred the Sith and almost wiped out the clan of Mandalorians. Republic forces arrived shortly afterwards and found the remnants of the clan imprisoned by the locals and rambling on about a golden-haired Jedi that cut through their forces like emissary of death. Naruto soon returned to the temple and revealed to the High Jedi Council who he was, as all that had known about him were long dead. He still tried to stay out of conflict if he could help it, but unfortunately, trouble still found him everywhere he went and he eventually just jumped right back into the heavy fighting. Both Rem and Ashoka looked on in awe of the achievements the old Jedi had accomplished, though they were more interested in his Padawans. Rem was annoyed when she was denied access to the records of Naruto's first Padawan, so she looked at his second one. Sira Agrar was brought to an enclave at a young age after she was found on a world that the Sith were driven off of. She was taken as a Padawan by Naruto 5 years afterwards, and the records showed that Naruto trained her very well and treated her like a daughter after a few years of a love-slash-hate relationship. Both Master and Padawan were listed as MIA after the sacking of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. Rem wondered if her master would treat her like he did Sira. Rem was suddenly assaulted by a vision of her master injured and fighting like a wounded animal against some heavily armored warriors while protecting his downed Padawan. She saw his eyes turn a strange shade of red as he started to slowly heal and cut the warriors down one by one with rage in his eyes. When the last warrior was struck down, Naruto fell to his knees and released an angry roar that ended as sorrowful wailing. Rem was brought back to the present when she felt Ashoka shaking her and looking at her in confusion. She also saw Master Skywalker looking at her with worry. "What's up with you? You blanked out for a second," asked Ashoka. "I believe I just saw a vision of the past. My master was defending his Padawan after they were ambushed by warriors whose armor was resistant to lightsabers, and he looked like he was in agony at the end of the battle." It was at this time Naruto appeared from behind a pillar and spoke up. "I was in agony as I was in an immense amount of pain and I thought my Padawan was killed before my eyes. The Mandalorians of my time were exceptional warriors and took me by surprise. I ended up slaughtering them all after one shot Sira in the back twice. She was barely alive but she survived, but it was touch and go for a while. Now I believe it is time to leave." Naruto ushered the 3 Jedi back to the podium where D7 was situated. "All the information you requested is in these holocrons, Master Uzumaki. Please return soon as we have a few matters to take care of," said D7 while motioning to a stack of holocrons on the podium. "Of course, D7, thank you again," said Naruto as he retrieved the holocrons and led his group out of the library and stopped at the door leading out of the temple and retrieved the holocron key, causing the door to close behind him. Naruto then led them back to the Hailstorm and worked on opening the port side hangar bay. Eventually the twilight was stored inside and Naruto was struggling to light off the engines. After 3 hours, the engines were operating at half capacity and the ancient warship slowly broke away from the ice that encased part of its starboard side. Naruto was situated in the secondary bridge as the primary wasn't space-worthy and he started to put in the coordinates to a Republic shipyard that was the closest. Of course, he had knocked out his passengers as he still had to keep the location of the library a secret. Naruto then pulled a lever and the ship jumped into hyperspace. Hailstorm in hyperspace. In hindsight, Naruto knew he shouldn't have used an ancient broken-down old ship to make a long jump into hyperspace. The old secondary hyperdrive was leaking and the main engines were almost out of fuel, and to top it off the navigational computer was on the fritz as instead of holding the course plotted, it set a course to Coruscant, and if Naruto was correct, they wouldn't receive a warm welcome at first. Naruto was willing to bet that no one alive has seen a ship like his in a few thousand years. Naruto had every operational droid repairing critical systems that were needed. The one thing he still needed to be operational was the comm system. Right now, communications on and off the ship were not possible, and currently Naruto was cannibalizing parts from the main hyperdrive to see if he could either slow the leaking down or stop it altogether. Naruto was cursing in many different languages. He knew the engineers that designed the hyperdrive made it to be efficient, but they didn't make it easy for anyone to repair. Naruto was brought out of his cursing tirade by the voice of his Padawan using the now somewhat repaired comm system. "Master, the comms are mostly ZZZTT, though we couldn't fully repair them. Also, we are coming out of hyperspace." "Well, that's good, at least I don't have to try to keep this piece of shit from shutting down," said Naruto as he kicked the hyperdrive. At that moment the ship lurched and fell out of hyperspace. "Well, fuck me then. Master? We have a problem. When we left hyperspace the engines shut down, so we are dead in the water, but on the bright side the reactors are still running at half capacity, so we still have power. Hold on, we are being surrounded by the defense fleet. And the auxiliary fleets are being stood up. Apparently the arrival of this ship set off some alarms that haven't been used since the old Republic era. You might want to come to the bridge, master." With that the comms cut out and Naruto booked it to the secondary bridge. When he arrived, he could see a rather large fleet of dreadnoughts and Venators surrounding them. Well, this could be a problem. The look his Padawan gave him basically screamed no shit. All of a sudden a hologram of a uniformed officer appeared on the holidable ZZZT, unidentified vessel. "You have entered restricted area, identify yourself or you will be fired upon." "Good morning, this is Jedi Master Uzumaki. My friends and I are in a slight pickle as my old ship finally broke down on me and we require immediate medical assistance. Forgive me if I seem doubtful of who you say you are." Naruto took out his lightsaber and placed it into the officer's view. "Ah. So you are a Jedi. Medical personnel are being notified and are on their way. If I may ask, what happened to put your ship in such a sorry state?" "I'm afraid I don't know. I would have to ask my Padawan about what happened." "Well, welcome back to, sir. We are being hailed by multiple people." "Well, put them through, Lieutenant." Two more figures joined in beside the hologram of the officer. One being the Chancellor himself and the other being Master Yoda. "Greetings, Chancellor. The cause for alarm turned out to be a false alarm. We can stand the fleets down." "Thank you, Captain Lamier, but tell me what caused the alarm. I didn't even know those alarms existed." "Well, that would be an oversight on my part. During the time of the Old Republic the threat of the Sith attacking was very high, so we had alarms set in place to warn us of their arrival. This is one of the old Sith Empire's ships that I captured and the sensors must have still registered it as one of their ships." "My word. If I, my young man, who did you say you were?" "My name is Jedi Master Naruto Uzumaki, Knight of the Old Republic. Or at least that is what the people of this time call my era." At this Naruto could swear he saw the Chancellor pale slightly at the mention of his name. Naruto looked over at Yoda and began to make his report. "Master Yoda, my trip to the library was a success as it is still fully operational and I have retrieved the knowledge I require along with a few other things." "Good news this is, but something more you wish to say, is there?" "Yes. I have found my Padawan alive. She and a few others are frozen and need immediate attention." I also have a question for you in private. I'm sorry to interrupt, but what is this library that you speak of? Asked the Chancellor. I'm afraid that I cannot tell you specifics, but I can tell you that it is a library full of old knowledge that is hidden to prevent an incident like what happened to the great Jedi library on Ossus from happening again. Fascinating. Would you be willing to share the knowledge that has been lost? I will see what I can do, but I would appreciate it if you keep this to yourself, as the less people know the better. I don't need people trying to find the library, as it is a pain to move it. You can move the library as the building itself? Yes. I'm afraid I will have to cut this conversation short, as I need to prepare to receive medical support. Captain, do you mind arrange for ships to tow my ship to the shipyards? Of course, Master Uzumaki. Medical personnel have arrived to your ship and are awaiting escort. Thank you. I bid you all a good day. With that, the communication was cut and Naruto made his way to the port hangar bay with his Padawan close behind him. Time skip 5 hours. Naruto stood in front of the whole of the Jedi High Council to make his report, and his Padawan stood beside him looking a little nervous. Naruto began giving his report about his arrival to the planet and what he had found. Naruto also told the Council of the Sith that had found the library but hadn't entered it. At this, the council started to argue about if it could be possible, wasting much time in the process. Only a few masters remained silent. Yoda, Kenobi, Wendu, Plo-kun, and Shak-Ti were a few. This behavior greatly angered and disturbed Naruto, as the bulk of council were acting like bureaucrats. Eventually his displeasure was too apparent to all in the room, as it felt like the gravity in the room increased tenfold, as most had trouble breathing and Rem was on her knees. The council could feel the effect that Naruto was having not only inside the chambers but the temple itself, as every Jedi in the temple, from the eldest of masters to the younglings, felt an abnormally large presence in the Force. Naruto, seeing the effect he was having on his Padawan, stopped projecting his presence and everyone's attention was on him. All was quiet for a few seconds until the temple's chief of security appeared in a hologram. Masters, there's been a massive disturbance. Are you all safe? Fine, we are, cause for alarm there is not. Know why the disturbance happened? We do. Take care of it, we will. Answered Master Yoda. Of course, Grandmaster. The hologram dissipated and again all attention was on Naruto. Why do you all have trouble believing what I have told you? Out of everyone in this room, I do believe I have the most experience in identifying a Sith when I see one. So trust me when I say this, there are probably more Sith out in the galaxy than just the suspected 2 Sith Lords and the few assassins. There will always be more, even if they are thought to be wiped out. They will always rise again to be an even bigger problem than before. Now, given how much time has passed and rumors that Dooku's master is human leads me to believe that the Sith in question is long dead. Now, do you have anything else for me? A mission we have for you. A temple on Asha's been found. It has, but its origins we are unsure of, and very worried we are. Occupants of the outpost nearby, vanished they have. Need you to investigate this temple. We do. Very well, but what means of transport will I use? Skywalker is using his ship and mine is not in working order. Windu answered, you will be taken to the planet by the cruiser Light Runner. There is a gunship waiting in Hangar 5 to take you to it. How widespread is the knowledge of the discovery? We can assume that the Separatists know, but it is not widespread. Answered Master T. Now for my main question, what is to become of my 2 Padawans? At this question Rem looked up at Naruto with fear in her eyes, but was comforted by Naruto when he placed his hand on her shoulder. Unorthodox your situation is, but not unheard of. Capable are you to take care of both? Asked Yoda with a slight smirk. Catching on to what the old Jedi was saying, Naruto nodded. Then keep both you shall. At the Grand Master's words, all eyes were on him and a few masters voiced their concerns on the matter until Master Yoda motioned for silence and told them that his decision was final. Naruto, having no further questions, bowed to the council and exited the chambers, followed by Rem, who had a smile on her face. Outside the temple hangar, Naruto walked through the temple until he stopped at a wall looking confused. Rem looked at her master with an expression that said, "What are you doing? There used to be a door here." To her master's credit, part of the wall looked slightly different than the rest. Naruto stared at the wall for a second more and turned to walk towards the hangar bay entrance. Rem stared at the spot, wondering what could be behind the wall, and then ran after her master. She caught up to Naruto in the hangar bay and both stepped into the gunship. A moment later the gunship took off and ascended into the crowded sky of Coruscant. Eventually the gunship landed in the hangar of the Light Runner and the two Jedi were met by the ship's captain. The captain was a surprisingly young man that stood at 5.5 feet tall and had a boxer's physique. He also had jet black cropped short hair, emerald green eyes, and a long jagged scar running down his left cheek. When he spoke, the captain had a strange accent that Naruto hadn't heard before. Imagine a slight southern drawl. "Welcome aboard the Light Runner, folks. My name is Cade Arkman. I've been informed of your mission to Asha's Re. It will take a few hours as it's far out of the way. Now are either of you hungry?" "The galley is this way," said Cade, motioning to the Jedi to follow him while he rattled on about the ship. The two Jedi shrugged and followed the chatty captain. Naruto watched as his curious Padawan caught up to the captain and started asking him questions. Cade looked amused and started to answer her questions. Naruto could tell that they would become good friends in the future. They stepped into the galley, which was packed full of clones, and Naruto was flabbergasted as he was told that the clone army was massive, but Naruto still had trouble believing that there were thousands upon thousands of clones. Naruto, while looking around dazed, bumped into one of the clones, almost making said clone drop his food. The clone turned around and glared at Naruto. "Watch where you're." The clone's mind came to an abrupt halt as he saw who almost made him spill his food. "Ah. Sorry about that, I'm still adjusting to this war and I've not seen this many clones before." The clone and the clones around him looked dumbstruck. They expected that a Jedi would be uptight and snooty, or be indifferent. Though here was a Jedi that didn't act like a traditional dickhead in their opinion. "It's okay, General, though this war has been going on for a while, so why are you unfamiliar with it?" asked the clone sitting down at a table. "Still not used to being called General either. Why I'm used to seeing so many clones is because I've been displaced from my own time." That got the clone's attention. "Displaced from your own time? You saying you're from the future?" "No, from the past. To be honest, when I first saw clones I thought I was looking at my unit's heavy armored division. Whoever designed your armor must have been a fan of the old Republic Commando armor or a fan of Mandalorian armor." "Ah, forgive me, I haven't introduced myself yet. I am Naruto Uzumaki. Now may I have the pleasure of knowing the name of the one I accidentally ran into?" "I am CT-7043, I don't have a name, sir." Looking troubled, Naruto thought for a second. "That won't do, everyone needs a name, even if it's only a nickname." "How about Gaz?" "That works for me, sir." "So Gaz, is there a reason that I sense a large amount of mistrust and disdain towards me from your comrades?" This threw off every clone that heard Naruto say this, and Gaz looked ashamed. "Well, sir, to put it bluntly, we don't feel that Jedi should be leading us, as they don't have experience leading troops into battle, and it really shows as we have taken heavy casualties due to many Jedi being new to the battlefield." "You have a point. The Jedi of this time have moved away from the peace-seeking warriors that they once were to diplomats, and it has really put them at a disadvantage in this war. Though I have heard that Kenobi and Skywalker are very good leaders. A few Jedi know what they're doing, yes, but the majority don't, sir." "True. Though you don't have to worry about me being inexperienced, as before I was displaced I was fighting against the now destroyed Sith Empire." "The Sith had an empire, sir?" "They had a few, but they never lasted very long, as infighting always caused them to weaken and eventually fall. The longest one would have been the Eternal Empire, as it lasted under Darth Vitiate, or better known as Valkorion. Of course, the only reason that particular empire lasted is because Valkorion held great power and they were well hidden until they decided to reveal themselves, but of course infighting weakened the empire and it eventually fell like the others." "Fascinating, sir, though I have a question, sir. You mentioned that the Sith had an empire. Does that mean that there were more than a few Sith alive at one time?" They were as numerous as Jedi, though many were not as well trained as the Sith coveted power, and many were reluctant to share their power with another, and the training of Sith acolytes was very deadly and torturous. Many didn't survive to become apprentices. Believe it or not, many of our elite forces of the time could hold their own against Sith warriors and assassins, though that training was quite brutal. Naruto stopped and looked around to find he had accumulated a rather large audience of clones and a few officers. Well, this is quite the gathering. Is my rambling entertaining to y'all? Naruto saw many of the clones nod yes, and he asked if anyone else had a question about the past. One of the officers asked about how he became a Jedi. Well, it was around the time that the Sith invaded my home world and slaughtered my people. At this, many of the clones winced, and the officer looked ashamed for asking the question that obviously brought up bad memories for their general. My people fought a losing battle against a superior foe. As we were a primitive planet by galactic standards, we still massacred the Sith and their troops until they left the planet, though they were sore losers as they bombarded my planet from space, killing all but me. They eventually left as the Republic had sent multiple fleets to combat them. With the Republic were Jedi. Though our meeting didn't go well at first, as I attacked them when they landed, believing them to be more Sith trying to finish the job they started. I pretty much tore through the Republic soldiers and Jedi until I came up against a Jedi battle master who eventually calmed me down. The battle master found out that I was force sensitive and offered to take me to an enclave to be trained as a Jedi, and seeing I had nothing left, I accepted the offer and left my decimated planet. I was trained as a Jedi Sentinel and later a Jedi Shadow in my early years. Now, before you all ask what a Sentinel and a Shadow are, I will explain. A Jedi Sentinel is one of the three main classes of Jedi that in a nutshell deal with the protection of temples and enclaves, as well as hunting down fallen Jedi and Sith. A Jedi Shadow is basically a stealth operative that specifically hunts down and destroys Sith and their artifacts. Now, for many years I was sent out to take down many Sith, and I did so with little argument. I eventually was assigned to guard the main Jedi temple that was stationed on Ossus at the time. The temple on Coruscant was there at the time, but it wasn't as large as it is now. Eventually, I was called away from the temple due to a young upstart falling to the dark side and raiding the great Jedi library, which was also on Ossus, along with killing its custodian. Many of the Padawans also followed him away from the light, too many. My job was to hunt them down and capture those who could be swayed from the dark side, or eliminate those who have fallen too far to be saved. I did what I could, but I failed in my task, as the young fool who was called Exar Kun found an ancient Sith's flagship that could rip the core out of a star. He ordered a subordinate to lure the Jedi fleet to a cluster of stars called the Kron Cluster. What he didn't tell her was that if a core was removed from a star, it would cause the star to go supernova. She, along with the entire Jedi fleet, were destroyed by the whole cluster of stars going supernova and destroying his true target, which was the temples and great library on Ossus. He was eventually hunted down and killed himself to try to escape as a Sith ghost, but was stopped by the Jedi. I was given a task of eliminating all of the creatures that Kun had made with Sith alchemy, which I did until the time of Darth Revan. It was around that time that I had lost my family again and was sent away for a different assignment that took me around 300 years to complete, and I am still protecting the end result of that assignment. I was called back to the temple on Coruscant when the Sith Empire returned and cut a bloody swath across the galaxy. I, along with many specially trained Republic soldiers, began our campaign against the Sith forces that posed a threat to worlds important to the Jedi. I killed so many of the Sith's forces that I was given the title the Bane of the Sith by my enemies and the Sentinel of Light by my allies. I hated both of those titles, as I was just doing my job. Anyways, eventually the Sith attacked Coruscant and sacked the temple, so many Jedi were told to flee. Well, my dumbass was stupid enough to lure my pursuers to a black hole in an attempt to escape, but that really didn't work out, as I was pretty much forced through the black hole at light speed and crash-landed on a planet where I met some Jedi that brought me back to Coruscant that had changed in the 3,500 years that I missed. Naruto looked around to see he had gained a larger group than before, and also saw the captain with his Padawan also listening to his story. Naruto looked at the time and shook his head, as he had gotten sidetracked for too long. "Alright, I'm glad I could entertain you all, but we all have to get back to work," said Naruto, causing many of the clones to groan in disappointment as they all started to scatter. Naruto watched as his Padawan approached him looking annoyed. "Master, why did you disappear like that? When we noticed you weren't with us on the bridge, we thought you had gotten lost and were wandering around the ship," said Rem, looking up at her master, trying to look angry but failing miserably. Naruto chuckled at his Padawan and replied, "Well, I got sidetracked and you two went to get something to eat," and struck up a conversation that turned into a history lecture kind of. "Well, next time try to tell us before you disappear." Naruto laughed at his Padawan's words and tousled her hair, causing a blush to appear on her cheeks and for her to whine, making Naruto laugh harder. "Captain, how far are we from our destination?" asked Naruto. "Well, sir, we jumped to hyperspace during your story time with the troops and are about 14 hours out." "Good, could you lead us to the bridge, Captain?" "Of course, sir, but please do your best to not get lost. I don't want to be forced to fit you with a tracker," said Cade with a slight twinkle in his eyes. "Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that," said Naruto with a grin. Chancellor's private chambers a few hours before. Sidious was not having a good day. First, many of the senators were in an uproar about some action that the Separatists took that lead to a massacre of a whole planet. Needless to say, he was annoyed at his apprentice already for that decision. Secondly, some ancient alarms started sounding suddenly, sending everyone in the Senate chambers into a panic when a distorted electronic voice was warning them that the Sith Empire is attacking, which to Sidious was preposterous, as the Empire had ended with Darth Bane when he implemented the Rule of Two. The third thing that really turned his day upside down was that the Bane of the Sith had returned. Sidious had read about the legendary Jedi from journals from the Sith Lords of old, and many of those lords never had the pleasure of crossing blades with said Jedi, but told of how his presence swayed the fight on any battlefield and warned any who had the displeasure of meeting him to retreat or face certain death. Sidious also was given information that the Jedi was investigating something on an old Sith world and decided it was time to act. Sidious contacted his apprentice Dooku, and a few seconds later a kneeling Dooku was seen in a hologram. "What is thy bidding, my master? A disturbing development has occurred. An enemy thought long since dead has returned and is an extreme threat to our plan. He is currently on his way to Asha's ambush his ship and eliminate him." "Who is this threat to us, Master Sidious?" "His name is Naruto Uzumaki, or better known to us as the Bane of the Sith." "Impossible, he should be long dead by now." "Impossible or not, he is alive and needs to be dealt with quickly. Make sure he dies, or all of the effort we have put into this plan will be wasted." "It will be done, my master." With that, the communication was cut and Sidious still had a bad feeling about the situation. Many hours later. "Captain, we're ready to leave hyperspace." "Very well, bring us out of it." "Yes, sir." With that, the young officer brought the Venator out of hyperspace above the planet. "Welcome to Asha's a backwater planet out in the far reaches of the galaxy. Now, wee woo, incoming projectiles from the planet, Captain. Looks like a few groups of Separatist cannons. They've caught us with our shields down, sir." The ship started to shudder from the barrage of fire. "Status report, I want to know how bad the damage is." "Sir, we have decompression on forward decks 1 through 6, the shield generators are gone, and the reactors have been hit, sir." "Fuck, pass the call to abandon ship, all hands to the escape pods. See if any of the pilots can escape in their fighters and gunships, set a rally point on the surface away from the cannons." "Yes, sir." With that, the whole crew was scrambling around to make preparations to leave the ship. Arkman motioned to the Jedi to follow him to the pods, and when they arrived he pulled them into one along with a medic clone and an injured engineer and launched the pod. The pod accelerated away from the crumbling ship just in time to watch it be torn apart, an explosion from within. The pod was struck by fragments of the ship and part of the outside caught fire. Cade fought with the controls to keep them from crashing into any other debris. Eventually they broke through the atmosphere of the planet and landed in an empty clearing a few miles away from the rally point. Naruto pushed the viewport off the pod and exited, carrying his Padawan, who was unconscious. Naruto saw that Cade was helping the medic carry the engineer out of the pod, but all three looked worse for wear. Well, this is a problem, Cade said as he laid the engineer on the ground. Yes, though not the worst situation I've been in, said Naruto, laying his Padawan down and started checking her for any injuries. Finding that she had a few broken ribs, he placed a few kolto patches around the affected areas. Naruto started to think and made his thoughts known. Well, now that we know that there are enemies on the surface, I propose that we suspend looking for the temple and regroup with the survivors. Sounds like a plan to me, sir, said Cade. With the decision made up, Naruto carefully picked his Padawan back up and followed Cade and the medic as they carried the engineer towards the rally point. It took them a few hours and they had to hide from patrols of droids from time to time, but they made it to where everyone was supposed to rally only to find a handful of personnel. Naruto guessed that this wasn't everyone that survived, but it was all that was there for now. Naruto followed the captain to where he guessed the surviving medics were looking over the injured and placed his Padawan down and made his way to the makeshift command center. What is our situation? Well, sir, of the crew only half made it to the life pods, and of those half only 3/4 of that made it down to the planet alive. There are still many of the crew scattered around us fighting droids, sir, and many need help. Where is the nearest group that needs assistance? 2 miles north of US, sir. Alright, I will contact you when they are safe. Tell the captain to hold the fort down and try to contact the Republic to send help. Aye, sir. With that, Naruto simply vanished from the clone's view. Naruto leapt from tree to tree scanning for any troopers in trouble, and eventually he found a group of 10 clones surrounded by 50 B-1 and B-2 battle droids. Naruto, not wanting to waste time, used an ability to fry the droid circuits. The 10 battered clones looked on in shock as the droids stopped firing and fell over, though they trained their aim on the figure that hopped down from a tree but quickly lowered their weapons as they recognized Naruto. One of the clones saluted Naruto and spoke, "General, we were separated from the rest of our group when the droids attacked us." "How many of you were there?" 40, sir. "Well, home base is about 2 miles that way. They don't have enough to defend if attacked. Please head that way to support them and I will find our missing friends." "Yes, General." The 10 clones saluted Naruto and jogged in the direction he told them to go. Naruto, knowing that the way he was searching for the lost clones was inefficient, made a few hundred clones and had them scatter. Naruto himself changed his direction to east and hopped back up into the trees. Eventually he found a group of 5 clones dead, surrounded by many destroyed droids. In the group was the clone captain, and it didn't look like the droids were the ones that killed him. To Naruto it looked like he was killed by a lightsaber. Naruto immediately turned to his left as he heard the sounds of blaster fire and clones screaming in pain. He leapt in the direction of the fighting and saw a pale humanoid female cutting through the clones with twin red lightsabers. Naruto, not wanting the woman to kill any more of the clones, used the force to grab her and chuck her away from the clones. Naruto looked at the surviving clones to see a large portion of the group was either dead or severely injured. Naruto also saw Gaz aiming at the female that attacked them. "Gaz, round up the living and retreat to base. I'll take care of whoever this is." "Aye, sir." "Alright, you heard the general. Grab the injured and let's move it." Naruto stood a few yards away from the mystery assailant and stared her down. "I will give you this chance to surrender and your life will be spared," said Naruto, retrieving his lightsaber from his belt and splitting it to form 2 sabers. The pale woman stood back up and laughed. "Surrender? To you? Don't make me laugh," said the woman. "Pity, allow me to introduce myself. I am Jedi Master Naruto Uzumaki." With that, Naruto ignited both his lightsabers. "I don't care." With that, Ventress leapt and slashed at Naruto, who simply blocked the strikes like they were the easiest thing in the universe to do. Naruto then shifted the saber in his right hand down and caused her to disengage or risk losing her hand. Naruto, not intending to give her any room to breathe, switched to the offensive, started to toy with Ventress, who now realized that her master had sent her on a suicide mission, as this Jedi was way out of her league. Naruto, tired of the engagement, switched off his lightsabers, sealed them into the seals on his wrists, and caught Ventress's arms while she tried to kill him with an overhead slash with both of her sabers. Applying enough pressure to almost break her wrists, Naruto caused the young assassin to drop both of her sabers, which both shut off when they hit the ground. Naruto then shifted his stance and slammed her to the ground hard and pinning her arms behind her. "Now, child, I will offer you to surrender one last time or I will kill you." Ventress, realizing how fucked she was and she really didn't want to die just yet. "Fine, I surrender," she growled out between grit teeth. Naruto unsealed some force-suppressing restraints and cuffed her hands behind her back and also cuffed her ankles together. Naruto then began a full-body search for weapons and other objects that he didn't want her to keep. She struggled and wiggled around, not wanting her full body to be searched, but she was given a warning by Naruto in the form of him pressing a painful pressure point on her neck. She stayed still after that but glared at him as it was humiliating. When he was done with his search and sealed away everything he had found on her person, Naruto tossed her over his shoulder, retrieved her sabers, and ran towards the direction of base camp. It took some time, but Naruto walked into the clearing that was now full of clones, from combat support to engineers to medical personnel, and more were still arriving. Naruto made a beeline to the captain, who was talking to his Padawan, and dropped the Sith assassin like a sack of potatoes in front of them. If the assassin could kill him with her glare alone, he assumed he would have been killed on the spot. "So I see that we have recovered a sizable portion of the survivors, though I regret to inform you that many were ambushed by droids and this woman," said Naruto. "Do you know who she is, Master Uzumaki?" asked Cade, looking at the assassin in disbelief. "Not a damn clue," she neglected to introduce herself. "That is Asajj Ventress, an assassin that works with the CIS and responsible for the deaths of many Jedi and Republic soldiers. She is responsible for the death of a close friend of mine." "How the hell did you capture her?" "She fights like an angry child, so it was quite easy to disarm and subdue her. Though I must admit she has an interesting fighting style, but she doesn't have the experience to kill me without underhanded tactics. Anyways, do we have a somewhat accurate headcount?" Cade kept his eyes on Ventress and spoke. "Mostly, sir. Out of the 7,400 crew members, only around 3,000 made it off the ship, and we have only found around 2,335, most are too injured to be much help, but some of the pilots were able to save 7 gunships and a few fighters and one of the hyperspace rings. We sent one of the pilots back to retrieve assistance from the nearest fleet. We also were able to save 2 ATEs. We also have a new problem. A fleet of CIS ships have arrived and have started to land troop carriers on the planet's surface. Well shit, they aren't making this easy, I'll give them that. Give the order to camouflage the vehicles and order the men to start covering their armor in mud. I will start creating foxholes and trenches for the troops to take cover in. I will also make a bunker to protect the injured. Assume they know we are here and are coming to wipe us out." "Sir, what are you planning?" "An ambush. When the holes and trenches are made, have the troops cover them with foliage to camouflage themselves. When the droids approach our location, I will appear and attempt to make contact with whoever is leading the droids. When they eventually attack me, the clones are to emerge and open fire, and the vehicles are to fire on any enemy vehicles." Naruto turned around to the gathered clones. "Who's the next in charge, since the clone captain is dead?" He was slightly surprised that Gaz raised his hand. "Gaz, round up the men and start preparing the camouflage," Naruto said as he walked into the forest outside the clearing and started to make many weird hand signs that the clones didn't know what to make of, but they all were startled as the ground beneath their feet began to quake and many holes began to form in the ground and a few trenches began to form encircling the clearing. Naruto smirked and started a new chain of hand signs and a deep hole formed in the center of the clearing. Naruto gave a pointed stare at Cade to crack the whip to get the chore started. "All right. You all know the orders given, All those able to fight cover your armor and start hiding yourselves. Those unable to fight are to help the medics move the injured into the bunker that the general has just formed. Move it. The whole camp scrambled into action and began hiding all traces of themselves and their presence. Cade looked over to Naruto and got his attention. "So whatcha going to do with Baldy?" asked Cade, glaring at Ventress, who glared right back. "Imprison her in her own underground cell." Ventress shot Naruto a startled look when she suddenly felt the earth open up under her and all she saw was darkness. "She'll be staying there until this is over. You're full of surprises, aren't you, sir? Stick around and I'll show you stuff that will have you questioning how the universe works," Naruto said with a smile as he motioned the captain to go join the men. Naruto waited out in the open of the clearing for around half an hour until he saw the approaching droids that were only amassing from the north of the clearing. To Naruto that was strange, as they could easily have surrounded the clones and would have the upper hand by stretching the clone forces thin. Whoever was in charge apparently wasn't really very good at battle strategy. Naruto watched as a B-1 battle droid approached him alone. When the droid was 10 feet from him, it pulled out a communicator and set it on the ground. The droid backed up as a hologram of an older human male with a well-groomed beard appeared. "Greetings, may I assume you are Jedi Master Uzumaki?" "You may. I am Count Dooku, leader of the CIS, a pleasure to make your acquaintance. It's a great honor to meet the fabled bane of the Sith." "Well, it seems I'm still so feared by the Sith that after a few thousand years my name is still known. Tell me, Count, are you in one of the ships above the planet now?" "I'm afraid not, as even I am not that foolhardy to be anywhere near you until I can confirm if the legends about your skills are true. You're smarter than your assassin, as she was quick to fight me and was bested quite quickly." "Ah, so Ventress is dead." "Pity, I didn't say that." Dooku's eyes widened at this statement, as he truly thought that Naruto would have killed her as he did many of the Sith of old. "Well, this is a surprise, but I can't allow you to leave this planet with her in your custody alive. I'm afraid you must be eliminated here. Give it your best shot, little Sith, because if you fail I will hunt you down to return the favor." With that, Naruto crushed the disc and force pushed the droid back to the line, taking out a few droids. Naruto unsealed his lightsabers and ignited the yellow blades. Responding to his actions, the droid forces advanced and began to fire. Naruto in turn deflected and dodged the blaster bolts until the majority of the droids passed the foxholes and trenches. He gave the signal for the clones to attack. The clones emerged partially from their cover and began to tear through the droids with blaster fire. Naruto, not wanting to miss the fun, leapt closer to the droids and commenced to slice and dice the nearest droids. The skirmish ended about 15 minutes later with all the droids rendered inoperable and a few casualties on the Republic's side. The troops cheered at their victory, but Naruto felt something was off, as it was too easy. He was proven right, as he could see more troop transports descending to the surface. Naruto ordered the gunships to take off and take as many out as they could. He also ordered the tanks to do the same. The transports were being taken out at a slow rate, so Naruto decided to help by using the force to push transports that were close together into each other, causing them to explode. Rinse and repeat. Eventually all but 3 transports were destroyed along with their cargo. Naruto, using the force, crushed 2 of the transports that landed and started to fly through a large amount of hand seals in a short amount of time. When he was done, Naruto slammed his hands into the ground and the clones around him watched in awe as an absolutely massive tree grew around the transport, rendering the transport unable to deploy its forces. It was at this time the enemy commander must have lost his cool, as the ships in orbit began to bombard their general location. Even thought the ships had very poor accuracy. Naruto ordered all troops back to their cover and he too jumped into a foxhole, but he peeked out to gain a visual of the enemy ships. Naruto began to draw upon Kurama's chakra and began to slowly crush the 2 closest droid frigates. The rest of the fleet, seeing what was happening, began to retreat but were stopped when 2 fleets of Republic cruisers exited hyperspace. I assume a fleet to the Republic to be 3 Venators, as they were always in a group of 3 in the show. the Republic ships made short work of the Separatist ships and began launching gunships and emergency transports to the surface. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief and began to take a head count of the living wounded and dead. He lost many clones to the bombardment, but Gaz and Cade had survived and were both in somewhat one piece. When he got to where he stashed the assassin, Naruto became agitated as the bombardment had breached the Earth prison he put Ventress in and she had escaped. Naruto sighed and began to help the medics transport the injured to the medical shuttles. He found his Padawan looking angrily at him as he didn't let her join him in battle, but he had put her to sleep again as she had internal damage from the pod's crash landing. He helped her onto a gunship and waved goodbye as the transport took off into the atmosphere. He turned to Cad and waved him over. "What can I do for you, General? Before you and the rest of the clones, -3 squads, leave, I have a proposal for you." "What would that be, sir?" "You seem to be lacking a ship, Captain. How would you like to be in command of mine?" "Your ship, sir?" "Yes, my ship is currently being repaired and refit. But she is one of the best ships I have ever had." "I would be honored, sir, though we'll hash the details out after you finish your mission, sir." "Good huntin', sir." With that, Cade stepped onto a gunship and it flew off. Naruto turned around and faced the remaining clones and saw that many of them were the ones that survived the skirmish as they all had dried mud still on their armor. "Well, I'm not going to lie, we're all tired, but we still have a mission to complete, but at the very least we don't have to walk halfway around this planet. Gaz, load the troops up and let's get rolling," said Naruto, cracking a smile. "Sir, yes sir." "All right men, you heard the general, load up." With that, the clones entered the remaining gunships and Naruto was the last to embark as he took one last look at the scarred battlefield and sighed. This was going to be a long, annoying war. That's it for today, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this video.